The galaxy had never seen fear like this. Stars shone across countless systems, civilizations thrived on countless worlds, and yet, a dark shadow had begun to spread. The Zerathians, a race of merciless conquerors, had arrived. Ships the size of small moons tore through space, leaving entire planets lifeless in their wake. No fleet, no matter how powerful, had ever managed to stop them. In the Grand Council Hall of the Galactic Alliance, leaders from hundreds of species gathered. Their faces were tense, their voices shaky. Holographic maps of the galaxy flickered before them, showing red zones that marked planets already lost. "We must strike now," said a silver-skinned diplomat, her voice trembling slightly. "If we wait, they will take everything." But the debate dragged on. Every species had their own ideas, their own ways of fighting. Some wanted diplomacy, others wanted a slow, careful defense. No one wanted to act decisively. The minutes stretched into hours, and still the Zerathian fleet advanced. Meanwhile, on a small blue-green world near the edge of the Milky Way, humans were preparing quietly. Their colonies were far smaller than the great civilizations of the core worlds, but they had something others did not: resilience and courage that burned brighter than any star. Humans were often underestimated, their ships modest, their numbers small, their technology sometimes considered primitive. Yet they had survived countless disasters on their own planet, and their history was full of stories where they overcame impossible odds. On the bridge of the USS Resolute, the human flagship, Captain Sarah Kane stared at the blinking red dots on her navigation screen. "That's a lot of ships," she muttered. Her second-in-command, Lieutenant Marcos, nodded grimly. "It's more than anyone thought possible." The reports were right, they're heading straight for the inner systems. Sarah clenched her fists. "Then we'll meet them head-on. We can't wait for the galaxy to act. We'll handle this ourselves." Her words carried a weight that could be felt even through the metal walls of the bridge. It was the same kind of determination humans had always shown, and the crew knew it. They nodded silently, understanding the gravity of what they were about to face. Far from the human colonies, the Zerathian High Command gathered on their massive flagship. Their leader, a being of terrifying intelligence and cold calculation named Xerax, observed the galaxy through a wide crystalline display. "These humans, small, insignificant, yet they act with confidence," Xerax hissed, its voice echoing unnaturally across the chamber. "They will be interesting." On the human colony world of Alicia, civilians were already evacuating. The ground shook as distant explosions rocked the atmosphere. Zerathian scouts had already begun testing the defenses of outer colonies. Families clutched each other, eyes wide with fear. But there was also a strange glimmer of hope. Humans were preparing to fight back, and in their hearts they knew they had a chance. Scientists and engineers worked day and night to ready every ship, every weapon, and every piece of technology they could find. Makeshift drones were repaired and upgraded. Old starships were refitted with new shields, cannons, and stealth systems. The humans had no time for pride in their technology, they needed results, and they needed them fast. The first humans to leave the planet were pilots of small, fast ships. Their mission was risky: intercept the Zerathian scouts and gather intelligence. They soared into space with engines blazing, weaving through the asteroid fields like predators stalking prey. Despite the overwhelming power of their enemy, their movements were precise, calculated, and, above all, fearless. Back at the Galactic Alliance, other species were beginning to notice. "Why are the humans moving so quickly?" asked a green-scaled ambassador, frowning. Most civilizations would be panicking, debating endlessly, or hiding. Yet here they are, taking action. The council remained silent for a moment. They had all underestimated humans for years. Small colonies, primitive ships, unpredictable behavior, it was all misleading. Humans thrived where others would fail. Humans acted where others hesitated. Meanwhile, deep in the dark reaches of space, the Zerathian fleets continued their march, oblivious to the stir they were causing. Entire star systems flickered red as their ships destroyed anything in their path. The galaxy began to whisper in fear. If the humans cannot stop them, nothing will. But humans had already made their choice. They would not wait for allies, debates, or endless strategy meetings. They would fight. They would resist. They would survive. On the Resolute, Captain Kane gave the order: "Prepare to jump to the outer sectors. Time to see what we're really capable of." Engines roared. Shields hummed. Weapons powered up. Every human aboard the fleet knew the stakes, yet fear did not rule them. Instead, determination, courage, and a stubborn refusal to surrender filled their hearts. As the human ships disappeared into faster-than-light travel, A distant voice echoed across the galaxy, not through speakers or communications, but through the feeling of inevitability. Wherever the Zarathians went, they would soon learn that humans were not just another species to conquer. Humans were unpredictable. Humans were dangerous. And humans were just getting started. In the council hall, other civilizations finally began to stir. "Look at them," whispered one leader. "They move without hesitation. They act while we debate. They might be our only hope." And somewhere, deep within the Zarathian High Command, Xerax tilted its head, considering the humans in a way it had never considered any species before. Interesting, it thought. They are small, but perhaps they are the ones who will change everything. The galaxy was about to realize something it had never understood before. When humans decide, the consequences are far greater than anyone can imagine. And this was only the beginning. The galaxy watched, silent and fearful. The Zarathian fleets advanced relentlessly, leaving entire star systems in ruin. Most civilizations were frozen in indecision, unable to act, trapped in endless debates over strategy, diplomacy, or surrender. But on the edge of the galaxy, the humans were already moving. On the planet Alicia, the Human Council convened in a secure underground bunker. Leaders from several human colonies gathered, their faces serious, their voices firm. Unlike other species, humans did not waste hours arguing. They assessed the facts, understood the danger, and made a decision. Captain Sarah Kane stood at the head of the table, her hands resting on a holographic map of the galaxy. Her eyes were sharp, her expression unyielding. "We have only one choice," she said. "We cannot wait for the Alliance to act. We cannot hope that others will save us. If we want to survive, we must do it ourselves." The room was quiet for a moment. Then, one by one, other humans nodded. Engineers, scientists, military officers, they all understood. There was no fear in their eyes. Only determination. Lieutenant Marcos, Kane's second in command, leaned forward. "We'll need to move quickly. The Zarathians are closing in, and their scouts are already in our sector. Every second counts." "Then we don't wait," Kane said. "We strike. We defend our colonies. And we show the galaxy what humans are capable of." Plans began to form immediately. Humans worked fast. They did not have the massive fleets or advanced weapons of other civilizations, but they had ingenuity, creativity, and courage. Engineers scoured old shipyards for forgotten vessels. Scientists modified weapons, creating tools that were unpredictable and dangerous in the right hands. Pilots trained relentlessly, running simulations that mimicked impossible scenarios. Outside the bunker, the skies were already alive with activity. Small fighter ships took off, zipping past the clouds with their engines blazing. Cargo vessels loaded supplies at breakneck speed. Every human who could help was helping, every hand mattered. The humans did not pretend this would be easy. They knew the Zarathians were stronger, faster, and better equipped. Entire fleets had been destroyed by these invaders in weeks. But humans had something no one else counted on: their ability to think differently, adapt quickly, and take risks that no other species would dare. In a secure communications room, human commanders coordinated with colonies scattered across nearby systems. "We'll split our forces into 3 groups, Kane instructed. "Group Alpha will engage the enemy scouts. Group Beta will defend the colonies. Group Gamma will attempt a surprise strike on their supply lines. Everyone else, support where you can." Marcos raised an eyebrow. "It's risky, Captain. The scouts are strong and our fleets are small." Sarah smiled faintly. "Humans don't always win by strength alone. We win by being unpredictable. That's our advantage." Meanwhile, in space, Zarathian scouts detected the human fleets. Their sensors picked up small ships, old war vessels, and crude drones, but something about them was different. The humans were not hiding, not fleeing. They were moving deliberately with purpose. For the first time, the Zarathians hesitated. Back on Alicia, civilians watched the humans depart. Children waved from their windows as fighter ships streaked across the sky. Families held each other tightly, hearts pounding, but a strange sense of hope filled the air. Humans might be small, their ships fragile, and their numbers limited, but they would fight, and that meant everything. As the human fleets gathered at the edge of the system, Kane addressed her pilots. "Listen carefully. This mission is dangerous. Many of you may not return. But if we succeed, we buy time for the galaxy. More importantly, we show that humans will never surrender. We will adapt, we will survive, and we will fight no matter the odds. Understand?" "Understood, Captain," the crew shouted, voices echoing through the ships. The humans launched into space. Engines roared, weapons hummed, and the first engagement with the Zarathian scouts was only hours away. The galaxy waited, anxious, as humans took the fight to an enemy that had already crushed so many before them. The first skirmish was brutal. Zarathian drones and fighters attacked with precision, their weapons designed to annihilate any resistance. Human ships darted through space, dodging, weaving, and striking back with tactics that no one could have predicted. Small, fast vessels used terrain, asteroid fields, nebulae, and gravitational anomalies to their advantage, setting traps that destroyed enemy drones before they even knew what happened. Captain Kane watched the battle unfold from the bridge of the Resolute. "Impressive," she muttered. "But this is only the beginning." One human pilot, a young woman named Jia Lin, performed a daring maneuver. She led a small squad through a narrow asteroid corridor, evading multiple enemy ships before launching a counterattack that crippled a Zarathian scout vessel. Her crew cheered over the comms. It was small victories like this that inspired hope. Meanwhile, back on the human colonies, scientists worked tirelessly to predict the Zarathians' next move. They had no time for fear or hesitation. Every calculation, every test, and every repair mattered. Humans did not wait for perfect conditions. They adapted in real time, turning disadvantages into opportunities. By the end of the first day, humans had achieved what no other species had dared to attempt. They had engaged the enemy, survived, and even inflicted damage. Word spread quickly across the galaxy: humans were fighting back. And unlike other civilizations, they did not ask for permission. They did not wait for a council's approval. They acted. Deep within the Zarathian command fleet, Xerax observed the humans. "They are reckless," it said, voice tinged with curiosity. "Yet they survive. They adapt. Perhaps we underestimated them." That night, as human crews rested briefly, there was no celebration. They knew the war had just begun. But there was a quiet confidence among them, a belief in their ability to endure, to overcome, and to handle what no one else dared to face. In the coming days, the humans would strike again, testing the limits of their courage, their intelligence, and their spirit. Other species watched, amazed and wary. The humans had made their choice. They would fight. They would endure. And in doing so, they would change the galaxy's understanding of what it meant to be truly dangerous. The humans had decided they would handle it themselves. And the galaxy would never be the same again. The human fleet had left the safety of their home systems and entered the dark reaches of space. Stars stretched endlessly and nebulae glowed like distant fires, but the humans' focus was on the threat ahead. Every sensor on every ship was active, scanning for movement. The Zarathian scouts were out there, and sooner or later humans would meet them face to face. Captain Sarah Kane paced the bridge of the USS Resolute, her eyes locked on the main display. Red blips danced across the holographic map, enemy ships closing in fast. "Prepare for engagement," she ordered. "This is what we trained for." Lieutenant Marcos frowned. "They're fast, Captain. Their ships outnumber ours by nearly 10 to 1. Kane didn't flinch. "Numbers don't matter. Humans survive against impossible odds every day. Stay sharp, follow the plan, and trust your instincts." The first scouts appeared suddenly, like shadows emerging from the darkness. Sleek, black ships moved with lethal precision, their engines leaving trails of violet energy that cut through the void. They fired without warning, blasting a small human frigate into pieces before the crew could react. Panic could have taken hold, but humans were not like other species. Pilots adjusted instantly, weaving through enemy fire, returning shots with cunning tactics that the Zarathians did not anticipate. One squadron, led by Lieutenant Jia Lin, moved through an asteroid belt. Using the rocks as cover, they ambushed a pair of enemy ships. Missiles struck with deadly accuracy, and the Zarathian scouts were forced to retreat. Lin's voice crackled over the comms. "They won't expect this. We're too small, too fast. Hit them where it hurts." Other humans tried similar tactics, striking from unexpected angles. Makeshift drones jammed the Zarathian sensors. Old starships, long thought obsolete, fired weapons in patterns that created confusion among the enemy ranks. Each move was bold, dangerous, and incredibly effective. Meanwhile, on the Resolute, Captain Kane monitored the chaos with calm precision. "Their formations are tight," she said. "But they haven't faced humans like this before. We're unpredictable, and that makes us dangerous." The humans' daring attacks caught the enemy off guard. A small detachment of fighters managed to infiltrate a Zarathian command frigate, uploading viruses and sabotaging its navigation systems. Explosions rocked the enemy vessel, and it drifted helplessly into the void. Zarathian sensors picked up the intrusion immediately. Within the massive bridge of their command ship, Xerax hissed in frustration. These humans, they survive against impossible odds. They think differently, act differently, and yet they strike with purpose. Fascinating. The battle escalated. Human ships took heavy damage, but they adapted in real time. Every loss was a lesson, every strike a calculated risk. One small frigate, nearly destroyed, was piloted by Ravi Torres, who guided his vessel through a deadly debris field, firing torpedoes at close range that disabled 2 enemy fighters. His ship limped back to the fleet, battered but victorious. Through it all, humans communicated with precision, sharing intelligence instantly. Commands flowed across the fleet like a well-oiled machine, despite their small numbers. They were fast, they were clever, and they were relentless. Hours passed, and by the end of the first day of engagement, the human fleet had survived against overwhelming odds. They had inflicted serious damage on the Xerathian scouts, and their actions sent a message across the galaxy. Humans were not weak. Humans were not to be underestimated. Yet the victory came with a sobering reality. The main Xerathian fleet loomed on the horizon, a shadow larger than any human fleet could possibly face. Captain Kane knew this was only the beginning. "Prepare for what's next," she said, voice steady. "This was the first strike. There will be more, and we must be ready." On the planet Alicia, news of the human success spread quickly. Civilians cheered cautiously, proud of their people, yet fearful of what was to come. The Xerathians were not finished, and the humans had only made the enemy aware of their audacity. In the Xerathian command fleet, Xerax studied the humans with a growing sense of interest. They are unpredictable and relentless. These humans are unlike any species we have encountered. They may become a problem. Back with the human fleet, Captain Kane convened her officers. "We've proven we can fight them," she said. "But now we need to prepare for the real battle. They will come in force and we must be ready to strike, not just defend." Lieutenant Marcos frowned. "Do we have the resources, Captain? We're already stretched thin." Kane's eyes burned with determination. "We adapt. We innovate. That's how humans survive. The galaxy may doubt us, the enemy may underestimate us, but we will endure. And when they least expect it, we will strike." As the fleet made repairs and readied for the next encounter, a feeling spread among the crew. Something new had awakened. Humans were no longer simply defending their colonies. They were asserting themselves, showing the galaxy that even in the face of an unstoppable enemy, they were not afraid. That night, Kane looked out at the stars from the bridge of the Resolute. The vast darkness stretched infinitely, filled with countless threats. Yet, in that darkness, she felt a spark of something stronger: determination, courage, and the unyielding human spirit. "They won't see us coming," she whispered. "We're just getting started." The galaxy had taken notice. The humans had made their first contact with the enemy, and they had survived. But the main battle was coming, and the humans knew it would require everything they had, and more. The humans had fought their first battle against the Xerathian scouts, and the galaxy had noticed. Across countless worlds, species that had once dismissed humanity as weak or irrelevant now whispered in disbelief. Small ships, modest fleets, and seemingly fragile technology had managed to survive, and even damage, one of the deadliest forces the galaxy had ever known. On the bustling capital planet of the Galactic Alliance, council chambers were filled with murmurs of astonishment. Leaders from advanced civilizations paced back and forth, staring at the incoming reports. "It can't be real," one diplomat said, his green-scaled fingers tapping nervously against the console. "Small human ships, they survived against scouts? And inflicted damage." Another leader, a towering being with crystalline skin, shook its head. "They are unpredictable. They act without hesitation. While we debate endlessly, they strike, adapt, and survive. This changes everything." In the human fleet, the atmosphere was markedly different. Humans did not boast or celebrate too loudly. Their victories were small but meaningful. Each success was a lesson, each loss a challenge to overcome. Captain Sarah Kane walked the decks of the USS Resolute, inspecting damage reports and speaking quietly with her crew. Lieutenant Marcos approached, a grin on his face despite the exhaustion. "They're talking about us," he said. "Other species, they've seen what we did out there." Kane nodded. "Let them watch. Let them underestimate us. It will make our next moves even more effective. Humans don't fight for glory, they fight because we must survive. Everything else comes second." Meanwhile, the civilians of Alicia and neighboring colonies were sending messages of support. They had seen the reports of the skirmish, of humans daring to engage the enemy, and their hope for survival had grown. Children watched from their windows as fighter ships streaked across the skies, knowing that brave pilots risked everything to protect their homes. Even the scientific minds of the galaxy were intrigued. Human tactics were studied, analyzed, and debated. They moved fast, improvising strategies that no other species would consider. They used terrain, asteroids, nebulae, debris fields, to their advantage. They repurposed old ships with creativity bordering on brilliance. And above all, they were fearless. Reports from the battle reached Xerax, the leader of the invading fleet. The enormous, crystalline being watched the holographic reconstructions of human maneuvers, analyzing every strike and counter. They survive, it hissed. And they adapt in ways no other species has. Fascinating. The Xerathians had expected humans to cower, to surrender, or to flee. Instead, they had fought. They had survived. And they had forced the enemy to pause. For the first time in the galaxy, the Xerathians were beginning to respect, if not fear, the small blue-green species. Back with the human fleet, preparation for the next engagement began immediately. Captain Kane called a meeting of her senior officers. "The galaxy is watching us," she said, her tone firm but calm. "Some will cheer us. Some will doubt us. Some may even fear us. But we cannot let that distract us. The Xerathians are still out there. They are still a threat. And we must continue to fight intelligently, boldly, and without hesitation." Lieutenant Lin, the pilot who had made the daring maneuver through the asteroid belt, raised her hand. "Captain, if other species are watching, maybe it's time to show what humans can really do. We don't have the numbers, but we can make them regret underestimating us." Kane nodded. "Exactly. Humans don't rely on strength alone. We rely on creativity, courage, and determination. The galaxy may doubt us, but we know who we are. We survive and we fight back, always." As the fleet moved deeper into enemy territory, whispers of human audacity spread like wildfire. Across distant systems, species that had long considered themselves advanced or unbeatable began to reconsider their assumptions. "If the humans can survive against the Xerathians," one diplomat mused, "then perhaps we have underestimated every small species in this galaxy." On the front lines, humans executed increasingly daring operations. Using speed and clever tactics, they harassed Xerathian supply lines, disabled smaller ships, and tested the weaknesses of enemy formations. Every engagement taught them something new. Every success boosted morale. Every failure became a stepping stone for adaptation. Even in the midst of action, humanity's peculiar approach drew attention. Where other species relied on rigid strategies, humans were flexible. Where others hesitated, humans acted. Where others relied on raw firepower, humans used cunning, surprise, and improvisation. The galaxy could see it clearly now. Humans were not simply another species. They were unpredictable. They were dangerous. In the councils of more cautious species, debates erupted. "We should ally with them," argued one leader. "They are the only ones who can fight the Xerathians effectively." Another shook its head. "No. They are reckless. They act without thought for the consequences. They may survive, but their actions are unpredictable. We cannot rely on humans." Despite these debates, the humans remained focused. They did not seek approval, recognition, or praise. They fought because it was necessary. They acted because hesitation meant defeat. And with every successful strike, their legend grew, not only among the stars but also among their own people. On the Resolute, Captain Kane stood in silence, looking at the galaxy stretching before her. "Let them watch," she whispered. "Let the entire galaxy see. Humans act when others cannot. Humans survive when others fail. And humans never give up." As the fleet moved into position for the next engagement, something subtle but profound happened. The other species of the galaxy began to reconsider their assumptions about humanity. What they had once dismissed as a minor, fragile race had demonstrated courage, cunning, and resilience that rivaled the most advanced civilizations. Even the Xerathians had begun to take notice. Xerax observed the reports with growing unease. "Interesting," it muttered. "Perhaps we have underestimated them. Perhaps humans are dangerous." The galaxy was watching, and the humans knew it. Every ship, every crew member, every pilot understood the responsibility they carried. They were not fighting for glory. They were not fighting for fame. They were fighting for survival, and for the knowledge that when humans acted, the universe could not ignore them. And somewhere, deep in the void beyond human space, the main Xerathian fleet gathered, preparing to respond. They would soon learn what humans were truly capable of, and the galaxy would watch the events unfold with bated breath. The humans had made their presence known and the galaxy had watched. But Captain Sarah Kane knew that observation alone would not stop the Zarathians. The enemy was still powerful, still advancing, and still relentless. To survive, humans could not merely defend, they had to take the fight to the enemy. In the command room of the USS Resolute, Kane addressed her officers with calm determination. "We've proven we can survive against their scouts. Now it's time to strike at their supply lines, disrupt their formations, and show them humans are not passive prey." Lieutenant Marcos raised an eyebrow. "That's extremely risky, Captain. Their fleets are massive and we're outnumbered." Kane's eyes narrowed. "Humans have never relied on numbers alone. We rely on strategy, unpredictability, and courage. That's how we survive. That's how we win." The fleet moved swiftly, weaving through asteroid fields and navigating dense nebulae to avoid detection. Small, fast ships broke off from the main formation, their engines silent, their weapons primed. They were on a mission that no one else would attempt, a surprise attack on the Zarathian supply network. As they approached, the humans observed the enemy supply convoys, massive ships carrying fuel, weapons, and critical resources for the Zarathian advance. These convoys were lightly defended, assuming no species would dare approach so boldly. Humans did not hesitate. Lieutenant Jialin's squadron darted forward first. They slipped through gaps in the enemy formation, firing precision torpedoes at key targets. Explosions rocked the convoys, sending massive debris tumbling through space. Enemy fighters scrambled to respond, but the humans' fast, unpredictable movements made them difficult to track. On the Resolute, Captain Kane monitored the engagement. "Keep the pressure on," she commanded. "Hit their supply lines, then retreat before they regroup. We don't need to destroy their fleet yet, we need to weaken them, confuse them, and force them to make mistakes." The humans' attacks were precise and bold. Frigates and small destroyers moved like shadows among asteroids and debris fields, striking at key points in the Zarathian logistics chain. Drones were deployed to jam sensors, creating chaos in enemy ranks. Even older ships, retrofitted with clever modifications, caused damage far beyond their size. The enemy responded with force. Fighters swarmed and energy beams tore through the void. One human vessel, piloted by a rookie named Ravi Torres, dodged a barrage of laser fire while leading a daring counterstrike against a supply ship. His maneuvers were audacious, risky, and brilliant. Explosions lit the void as the supply vessel was destroyed, its cargo drifting into empty space. Marcos watched from the bridge, a mixture of pride and tension on his face. "They're doing it," he said. "Against impossible odds, they're winning." The success was not without cost. Several human ships were damaged and a few crews were lost. But each victory bolstered morale. Every strike sent a message across the galaxy. Humans were not only surviving, they were fighting back. Meanwhile, across the stars, the Zarathian High Command observed the attacks with growing unease. "They are clever," Xerax hissed. "They do not act like other species. They do not fear us. They are unpredictable." This unpredictability was exactly what humans relied on. While the enemy expected predictable responses, humans used improvisation and rapid adaptation to their advantage. One squadron led by Lieutenant Lin executed a near-suicidal maneuver, weaving through an asteroid cluster to disable two heavily armed supply ships before disappearing into the void. By the end of the first day of the counterattack, the humans had achieved something remarkable. They had weakened the enemy's supply lines, inflicted casualties, and disrupted the Zarathian advance. The galaxy began to take note. For the first time, humans were not just defenders, they were aggressors. On Alicia, news of the strike spread quickly. Civilians cheered cautiously, proud of their people's bravery. "They are not just surviving," one elder said. "They are showing the galaxy that humans cannot be ignored." But Captain Kane knew the real challenge was still ahead. The main Zarathian fleet would not remain passive for long. They would regroup, bring reinforcements, and retaliate with greater force. The humans' victories had painted a target on their backs. Kane convened her officers again. "We've struck back successfully, but we cannot become complacent. The enemy will learn quickly. We must be ready for their counterattack. We will need every ounce of courage, intelligence, and creativity we have." Marcos nodded. "And if they come at us full force?" Kane's expression was calm but determined. "Then we will fight. And we will win. Humans have survived impossible odds before. We adapt, we improvise, and we endure. The galaxy may doubt us, the Zarathians may underestimate us, but they will soon learn the truth." Deep in the void, the Zarathians were indeed preparing. They analyzed human tactics, studied their movements, and attempted to anticipate their next strike. But humans were always one step ahead, thinking in ways no other species would. Creativity, courage, and unpredictability were their greatest weapons. The humans' counterattack had not only damaged the enemy but also shifted the balance of perception. Across countless worlds, the whispers of amazement grew louder. If humans can strike the Zarathians, then perhaps they can turn the tide of this war, one diplomat said. On the Resolute, Captain Kane looked out at the stars, her mind already planning the next moves. We've proven we can fight them, she said softly. Now we prepare for the storm. The main fleet is coming, and the galaxy will watch as humans face the impossible once more. And somewhere, deep within the Zarathian command ship, Xerax observed with growing concern. These humans, they may not be small, they may not be weak. They are dangerous. The galaxy was watching, the enemy was watching, and humanity had taken its first bold steps from survival to dominance. The next chapter of the war was about to begin, and the humans were ready to write it in fire, courage, and unyielding determination. The human fleet had struck the Zarathians before, but now there was no escape. The main Zarathian armada had arrived. Massive, relentless, and terrifying. Ships the size of small moons filled the void, bristling with weapons capable of obliterating entire fleets in minutes. The humans, small and outnumbered, were about to face the most impossible battle of their existence. Captain Sarah Kane stood on the bridge of the USS Resolute, her eyes scanning the endless sea of enemy vessels. Her crew was tense, but she felt a calm resolve. This is it, she said softly. This is what we've trained for. They outnumber us, they outgun us, but they cannot outthink us. Humanity survives where others fail. Humanity adapts where others perish. Remember that and fight with everything you have. Lieutenant Marcos clenched his fists. We're going to lose half our fleet, Captain. Kane shook her head. Then we fight smarter. Not by size, not by firepower, but by creativity, courage, and unpredictability. Humans don't surrender. Humans survive. And humans strike back harder than anyone expects. The battle began with a deafening roar. Energy beams lanced across space, explosions lit the darkness, and smaller human vessels darted like shadows between colossal Zarathian warships. The sheer scale of the enemy's power was overwhelming, but the humans refused to falter. Lieutenant Jia Lin led a squadron through a narrow asteroid field, drawing a portion of the Zarathian fleet into a trap. Torpedoes fired from hidden positions struck with precision, crippling enemy cruisers. The Zarathians, confident in their superiority, had not expected such boldness. Meanwhile, human engineers aboard the Resolute worked tirelessly, modifying weapons mid-battle, rerouting power to shields, and hacking enemy drones to turn them against their own fleet. Every action was a gamble, but every gamble was backed by the ingenuity and daring that defined humanity. On the bridge, Kane received reports of human pilots performing near-impossible maneuvers. Ravi Torres had navigated his frigate through the heart of enemy formation, disabling a Zarathian destroyer before slipping away. Small victories like these inspired the fleet and struck fear into the enemy. Yet the cost was high. Several human ships exploded, their crews lost in blinding flashes of light. Civilians watching from the colonies grieved, but the humans pressed on, their determination unwavering. Every sacrifice became fuel for the fleet's resolve. The Zarathians began to adapt, concentrating their attacks, using overwhelming force to crush the humans. But humanity's unpredictability was their greatest weapon. One squadron feigned retreat, luring enemy ships into a trap where hidden mines and ambushes destroyed multiple vessels in a single strike. The enemy's confidence faltered. These humans were unlike any species they had encountered. Captain Kane issued the final maneuver, a daring assault on the Zarathian command ship itself. It was a near-suicidal mission, but success could turn the tide of the battle. Lin, Torres, and a small elite team volunteered immediately. "We won't fail," Lin said, her voice steady despite the danger. "This is what humans do. We act when others hesitate." The team raced toward the command ship, dodging energy beams and weaving through debris. Explosions rocked the void around them, and it seemed impossible they would survive. But humans thrived on the impossible. Using precise coordination and clever tactics, they infiltrated the ship, planting charges that would cripple its core systems. Inside the command ship, chaos erupted. Zarathian officers scrambled to respond, but the humans were faster, smarter, and unrelenting. The charges detonated, causing massive explosions that crippled the command vessel and sent shockwaves through the enemy fleet. For the first time, the Zarathians hesitated. Back in the fleet, the humans seized the moment. Coordinated strikes hit the disorganized enemy, turning a desperate fight into a daring offensive. The tide had shifted, if only slightly. Humanity's courage, strategy, and ingenuity had created an opening against the galaxy's most feared invaders. On Alicia and nearby colonies, news of the battle spread. Civilians cheered, cried, and held each other close. Humans had faced impossible odds and survived. They had struck at the heart of the enemy. And they had shown the galaxy something no one had expected. Humans were not just survivors, they were a force to be reckoned with. Even Xerax, observing from the command bridge of a distant vessel, tilted its head in curiosity and unease. These humans, they are dangerous, it hissed. Small, weak, and yet brilliant. They think differently. They act boldly. They survive when others perish. Perhaps we underestimated them. The battle was not over. Many human ships were lost and the armada remained formidable. But humanity had proven a simple truth. They could survive the impossible, adapt to overwhelming odds, and strike when no one expected it. Captain Kane looked at her weary crew and said, "This is what it means to be human. We fight. We endure. And we do not give up. The galaxy may doubt us, the enemy may fear us, but we know who we are. And this fight, this impossible battle, we will survive it together." As the human fleet regrouped and repaired, a quiet but powerful feeling spread through every ship. Humans were more than a small species on the edge of the galaxy. They were a symbol of resilience, courage, and ingenuity. The galaxy had witnessed the impossible battle, and the legend of humanity had begun. The final confrontation was still ahead, but humans had proven that they would not be defeated. They would survive, they would endure, and they would continue to fight against impossible odds. The void was quiet for the first time in weeks. The human fleet drifted among the stars, battered but unbroken. Fires smoldered on some ships, shields flickered on others, but every crew member knew a simple truth: they had survived the impossible. Captain Sarah Kane stood on the bridge of the USS Resolute, looking out at the shattered remnants of the Zerathian armada. The massive enemy ships, once so confident and unstoppable, now floated lifelessly, their formations broken, their weapons silenced. Humanity had achieved what many thought impossible. Lieutenant Marcos approached, his face weary but smiling. "They're retreating, Captain. The Zerathians are pulling back." Kane nodded, feeling the weight of their victory. "We fought hard, adapted constantly, and never gave up. Humans do not surrender. And today, the galaxy has seen that." The rest of the fleet celebrated quietly. There were no grand parades or speeches. Survival itself was a triumph. Engineers worked tirelessly to repair damaged ships, medics attended to the wounded, and pilots recounted daring maneuvers with a mix of pride and disbelief. Every story, every heroics, became a part of humanity's growing legend. Across the galaxy, the news spread quickly. Other civilizations, once dismissive of humanity, now watched with awe. "They faced the Zerathians and survived," whispered a council member on a distant world. "They struck back where others would have fallen. Humans are remarkable." Even the Zerathians had begun to understand something fundamental about humans. From the command ship, Xerax observed the aftermath, tilting its crystalline head. "These humans, they think differently. They act boldly. They survive against all odds. They are not just a small species. They are dangerous. We underestimated them, and we will not forget it." Back on Alicia, civilians cheered cautiously as reports arrived. Children waved to returning pilots, families embraced, and elders nodded with quiet pride. Humanity had defended their homes, defended their colonies, and shown the galaxy what it meant to be human. Captain Kane addressed her officers one final time before they returned to the colonies. "This victory is ours, but it is also a lesson for the galaxy. Humans do not wait for others to act. We take responsibility, we fight when it is necessary, and we survive. Let this be a warning to anyone who thinks we can be ignored." Lieutenant Lin, her squadron having returned from the infiltration that crippled the Zerathian command ship, smiled. "We've changed how they see us, Captain. Other species, even the enemy, now know humans are not to be underestimated." Kane nodded. "Exactly. And that respect, that fear, it is well earned. But remember, this is only the beginning. Humanity will face challenges again. New threats will appear. But today we've proven what humans are capable of." The fleet made its way back to the human colonies. Along the route, they passed devastated planets and systems that had been occupied by the Zerathians. Survivors emerged cautiously, witnessing the human fleet as a symbol of hope. Humanity's actions had not only defended their own worlds, they had inspired countless others across the galaxy to fight, resist, and survive. On the Resolute, Kane allowed herself a brief moment of reflection. "We faced the impossible," she said quietly. "We adapted, we endured, and we won. Humanity is extraordinary." Lieutenant Marcos placed a hand on her shoulder. "And the galaxy has seen it now. They'll never forget what humans are capable of." Kane smiled faintly. "No, they won't. And that is just the beginning. When humans decide to act, they don't just survive. They change everything." In the distant void, the Zarathian fleets regrouped, silent and calculating. They had learned a painful truth: humans were not a species to conquer. Humans were a force to be respected, feared, and watched carefully. The galaxy, once dismissive of the small blue-green species, had witnessed humanity's courage, intelligence, and determination. Across countless worlds, species began to reconsider what it meant to fight, to survive, and to adapt. Humans had become a symbol of resilience and ingenuity, a living testament that even the smallest forces, when determined and clever, could shape the fate of the stars. And on Alicia, children watched the returning fleet with wide eyes, dreaming of the day they too might rise to face impossible odds. Humanity's legend had begun, but the story of their courage, bravery, and unyielding spirit would echo across the galaxy for generations to come. Captain Kane stood on the bridge of the Resolute one last time before docking. She looked out at the stars and whispered, "The galaxy knows now. When humans decide, even the impossible becomes possible." The humans had survived the impossible battle. They had struck back when all hope seemed lost. And the galaxy, the enemy, and every civilization across the stars had learned a vital lesson: never underestimate humanity. The war was far from over, but one truth remained eternal: humans were clever, bold, and unstoppable when they decided to act. And the galaxy would never forget that day.